Hansel Kim wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag that had seen better days. The cloth was so dirty it barely cleaned anything anymore, but it was all he had. His small repair shop on Kepler Station was cramped and messy, filled with broken parts and half-finished projects. The air smelled like oil and burnt metal. Most days he barely made enough credits to buy food. He walked to the tiny window that looked out at the station's main corridor. People moved past quickly, their faces tired and worried. Kepler Station was not a rich place. It sat on the edge of known space where only the desperate and the broke came to trade. Hansel had been here for 3 years now, fixing whatever people brought him. Broken tools, damaged ship parts, old computers that no one else wanted to touch. The door to his shop made a loud beep. A customer walked in, but Hansel's heart sank when he saw who it was. Taemin was a parts dealer who sold junk to anyone stupid enough to buy it. He was short and round with small eyes that always looked for ways to make easy money. "Hansel, my friend," Taemin said with a fake smile. "I have something special for you today." Hansel did not trust that smile. "I don't have much money, Taemin."
"What do you want?"
"Come with me to the scrapyard. I want to show you something amazing." Hansel almost said no. He had work to do, and Taemin's amazing things were usually garbage. But he was curious. He also needed a break from fixing the same broken things over and over again. They walked through the station's corridors to the scrapyard. It was a huge area filled with old ships, broken machines, and metal that no one wanted. The smell was terrible. Most of the ships here would never fly again. They were just waiting to be cut up for parts. Taemin led him to the far corner of the yard. "There," he said, pointing at something that made Hansel stop and stare. It was definitely a ship, but unlike any ship Hansel had ever seen. The hull curved in smooth lines that looked almost alive. Parts of it seemed to be made of metal, but other parts looked like crystal or stone. Strange patterns covered the surface, like writing from a language no one knew. The ship was about the size of a small fighter, but its shape was all wrong. It looked like someone had grown it instead of building it. "What is it?" Hansel asked. "No idea," Taemin said. "It showed up here 6 months ago. Some trader brought it in, said he found it floating dead in space. No one knows what species made it. The computer can't identify it. The Galactic Authority checked it out and said it was safe but useless." Hansel walked around the ship slowly. The more he looked at it, the more interested he became. The damage was bad. Parts of the hull were cracked, and some of the crystal sections were broken. But there was something about it that felt different. It felt like it was waiting for something. "How much?" he asked. Taemin laughed. "You're joking, right? This thing has been sitting here for months. No one wants it. The university looked at it and said it was worthless. Even the scrap dealers won't touch it because they don't know what it's made of." "How much?" Hansel asked again. "Half a credit," Taemin said. "Just to get it out of my yard." Hansel checked his credit chip. He had exactly 2 credits to his name. That was enough for food for the next few days, but if he bought this ship, he would be hungry until his next job. He looked at the strange vessel again. Everyone else saw junk, but Hansel saw possibility. "Deal," he said. Taemin's eyes went wide. "Really, you're serious? Transfer it to my bay." An hour later, the mysterious ship sat in Hansel's repair shop. It took up most of the space, making the small room even more cramped. Hansel had to move all his tools and parts to make room for it. He stood back and looked at his purchase. Other people in the station thought he was crazy. Word traveled fast in a small place like Kepler Station. By evening, everyone knew that the human mechanic had bought the alien junk ship for half a credit. Some people laughed. Others shook their heads and said he had finally lost his mind. Hansel did not care what they thought. He had learned a long time ago that other people often threw away things that still had value. His whole business was built on fixing things that others had given up on. He ran his hands over the ship's strange hull. The surface felt warm, which was odd because the ship had no power. The patterns carved into the metal seemed to move in the corner of his eye, but when he looked directly at them, they were still. He found what might have been a door, but there was no handle or button. The seam was so thin he could barely see it. He pushed against it, but nothing happened. He tried speaking to it, thinking maybe it responded to voice commands, but the ship remained silent. As night fell on the station, Hansel sat on his workbench and stared at the ship. He had no idea how to open it, how to power it, or even what it was supposed to do. He did not know what species had built it or why it had been floating alone in space, but he was not worried. He had made a living by figuring out how broken things worked. This ship was just another puzzle, even if it was the strangest one he had ever seen. Hansel smiled and reached for his tools. Tomorrow he would start taking this mystery apart piece by piece. He would learn its secrets no matter how long it took. He had paid half a credit for what everyone else thought was worthless junk. Time would tell if he was a fool or if he had found something amazing. 3 weeks had passed since Hansel bought the strange ship. His small repair shop looked like a disaster zone. Tools were scattered everywhere, and strange parts lay on every surface. He had barely slept or eaten as he worked to understand the mysterious vessel. The ship had finally opened for him on the 5th day. Not because he found a button or switch, but because he had been talking to it. He had been frustrated after trying everything he could think of, and he started complaining out loud about how nothing made sense. Suddenly, the door had simply melted away like water flowing upward. Inside, the ship was even stranger than the outside. There were no seats, no control panels, and no screens. Instead, the walls were covered with the same flowing patterns he had seen on the hull. Some sections pulsed with dim light like a slow heartbeat. The floor felt soft under his feet, almost alive. Hansel had spent days just trying to map out the ship's systems. What he found made no sense. The ship did not use wires or circuits like human technology. Instead, it had channels that looked like blood vessels, carrying some kind of fluid that glowed with soft blue light. When he touched these channels, they felt warm and seemed to react to him. This is impossible, he said to himself for the 100th time. A knock on his shop door made him look up. Dr. So-Young Park stood outside, her face pressed against the glass. She was a xenobiologist who worked in the station's small research lab. Hansel had met her a few times when she needed equipment repaired. He opened the door. "Dr. Park, what can I do for you?" "I heard about your ship," she said, trying to look past him. "May I see it?" Hansel hesitated. He had been keeping the ship's secrets to himself, partly because he was not sure anyone would believe what he had found, but he was also starting to feel like he needed help. "Come in," he said, "but what you see here stays between us." So-Young stepped into the shop and stopped when she saw the ship. Her eyes went wide as she took in its strange design. "My God," she whispered. "It's beautiful." "It's also impossible," Hansel said. "Look at this." He led her to the open door and pointed inside. "No control systems. No computers. No power source that I can find. But watch this." He placed his hand on one of the glowing channels inside the ship. The light grew brighter and began to flow faster. Other sections of the ship started to glow as well, as if it was waking up. So-Young stared in amazement. "It's responding to you, how?" "I don't know," Hansel said. "At first I thought it was just touch-sensitive. But it's more than that. It seems to react to how I'm feeling. When I'm frustrated, it dims. When I'm calm and focused, it gets brighter." So-Young pulled out a small scanner and began taking readings. "Hansel, this is incredible. These patterns aren't just decoration. They're like neural pathways. This ship is alive, and what do you mean alive?" "Not alive like an animal," she said quickly. "But it has biological components mixed with the technology. It's like someone grew this ship instead of building it." She looked at him with excitement. "Who made this?" "What species?" "I don't know. The computer databases have no record of anything like it." So-Young spent the next hour examining the ship with her equipment. Her excitement grew with each scan. "Hansel, this technology is beyond anything in known space. The way the biological and mechanical systems work together is perfect. It's like they evolved together over millions of years. Can you help me figure out how it works?" "I'll try, but this is outside my field. I study alien biology, not biomechanical engineering." "Have you tried to activate any of its systems?" Hansel shook his head. "I'm afraid to touch too much. I don't want to break it. From what I can see, it's already broken, or at least damaged. These patterns here," she pointed to some dim sections, "they should probably be brighter, and this area feels cold compared to the rest." That evening, after So-Young left, Hansel sat inside the ship. He had brought a small light and some food, planning to spend the night studying the patterns on the walls. But as he sat there, something strange happened. Images began to appear in his mind. Not his own memories, but something else. He saw vast cities that seemed to grow from the ground like trees. He saw beings of light tending to gardens among the stars. He saw fleets of ships like his own, but whole and bright and alive. The visions lasted only a few seconds, but they left him shaking. The ship around him pulsed with gentle light as if it was trying to comfort him. "What are you?" he whispered. The ship's glow shifted and suddenly Han Sol felt something he could not explain. It was like a presence in his mind, ancient and sad and tired. For just a moment he felt what the ship felt. It was lonely. It had been waiting for a very long time. "You're not just a machine," he said. "You're someone." The feeling grew stronger. Han Sol realized he was connected to the ship in some way, not just touching it, but linked to it mentally. Through this connection he sensed a name, or something like a name. Haywan. Haywan, he said out loud. "That's what you're called, isn't it?" The ship's glow brightened, and Han Sol felt a wave of something like happiness from the presence in his mind. But underneath it was something darker, fear, urgency, a sense that time was running out. "What are you afraid of?" he asked. The connection faded, leaving Han Sol alone with his thoughts. But he knew something important had happened. The ship was not just a machine or even a living thing. It was a person in its own way, and it needed his help. Han Sol made a decision. He would do everything he could to help Haywan. Whatever had damaged the ship, whatever it was running from, he would find a way to fix it. He had fixed broken things his whole life. Now he would fix a broken friend. Outside his shop, Station Security Chief Dong-hyun Choi watched through the window. He had been getting reports about strange energy readings from the humans' repair shop. The readings were getting stronger every day. Tomorrow he would have to investigate. Han Sol woke up inside Haywan's cockpit with a terrible headache. He had been having the dreams again. Every night for the past week, the ship had been showing him more visions. Cities burning, stars going dark, something huge and hungry moving through space, eating everything in its path. "Good morning, Haywan," he said softly, placing his hand on the warm wall. The ship pulsed with gentle light, like it was saying good morning back. Over the past month, their connection had grown stronger. Han Sol could feel Haywan's emotions now, and the ship seemed to understand his thoughts. Dr. So Young arrived early, as she had every day for 2 weeks. She carried a bag of equipment and a cup of coffee that smelled wonderful. Han Sol realized he had forgotten to eat again. "You look terrible," she said. "When did you last sleep in a real bed?" "I sleep fine here," Han Sol said. "Haywan has been trying to tell me something important. I think I'm starting to understand." So Young set up her scanners around the ship. The readings had been changing every day as more of Haywan's systems came online. "What kind of dreams?" "Not dreams, memories. Haywan is showing me what happened to its people." Han Sol's voice was serious. "They were called the Builders. They created incredible things. Ships that could think and feel, cities that grew like plants, technology that was alive. What happened to them? Something came from outside the galaxy. Something that eats everything. Stars, planets, entire civilizations. The Builders called them the Devourers." So Young stopped adjusting her equipment. "Han Sol, you're scaring me. Are you saying these Devourers are real?" "According to Haywan's memories, yes. The Builders fought them for thousands of years, but they couldn't win. So they built ships like Haywan as a last hope. They scattered them across the galaxy and then—" Han Sol's voice trailed off. "Then what?" "Then they all died. Every last one of them." The shop door burst open. Station Security Chief Dong-hyun Choi walked in with 2 guards. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes. Behind him came a woman in an admiral's uniform that Han Sol did not recognize. "Mr. Kim," Dong-hyun said, "we need to talk." Admiral Ji-hoon Lee looked around the cluttered shop with disgust. Her uniform was perfect and her face showed that she was not happy to be here. "Are you the mechanic who's been causing energy disturbances across the station?" "I haven't been causing anything," Han Sol said. "I'm just trying to fix a ship." "Fix it?" The Admiral walked around Haywan, studying its strange design. "According to our scans, this vessel is generating more power than our main reactor." "What exactly are you doing to it?" So Young stepped forward. "Admiral, this ship represents a completely new form of technology. We should be studying it, not treating it like a threat." "Dr. Park, I know who you are," Ji-hoon said coldly. "But you're a biologist, not a military expert. This object could be a weapon." Han Sol felt Haywan react to the word weapon. The ship's internal lights dimmed and he sensed fear from his friend. "It's not a weapon," he said quickly. "Well, not exactly. Explain." Han Sol took a deep breath. Haywan was built by an ancient race called the Builders. They created it to fight something called the Devourers. But the Builders are gone now, and the Devourers are coming back, So Young finished, looking at her scanner. Look at these readings. The ship's fear response is off the charts. Admiral Lee laughed. Fear response? Doctor, it's a machine. No, it's not, Hansol said firmly. HFY is alive. It has thoughts and feelings, and it's terrified because it knows something we don't. Which is, the Devourers are already here. The Admiral's expression changed. What do you mean? Hansol placed his hand on HFY's wall. The connection between them deepened, and suddenly the ship's memories flooded his mind. He saw images of massive dark shapes moving between stars. He saw entire star systems going silent. He felt HFY's desperate need to warn someone, anyone, about what was coming. 3 days ago, Hansol said, his voice distant, a star system went dark in the outer rim. Then another one yesterday. Your people think it's some kind of technical problem with the long-range sensors. Admiral Lee's face went pale. How could you possibly know about classified sensor data? Because HFY can sense them. The Devourers leave a mark wherever they go. Like a scar in space itself, Dong-hyun stepped closer. Admiral, we've been getting reports about strange sensor readings at the edge of our territory. Command told us it was equipment failure. It's not equipment failure, So-young said, studying her readings. Look at this bioresonance pattern. The ship is reacting to something that's happening right now far away. Admiral Lee was quiet for a long moment. Then she activated her communication device. Command, this is Admiral Lee. I need a priority update on all outer rim sensor stations now. While they waited for the response, Hansol felt HFY's urgency growing stronger. The ship was trying to show him something else. More memories, but these were different. He saw other ships like HFY, hidden in forgotten corners of the galaxy. Some were damaged like his friend had been. Others were completely dead. There are more ships, he said suddenly. 7 others scattered across known space. The builders hid them, hoping that someday the right people would find them and wake them up. Wake them up for what? The Admiral asked. To fight. The Devourers can't be stopped by normal weapons. Only builder technology can hurt them. But the ships need pilots, people who can form the same kind of bond I have with HFY. The Admiral's communication device crackled. Admiral Lee, we have a problem. 6 more sensor stations have gone dark in the last hour. We're losing contact with entire sectors. Admiral Lee looked at Hansol with new respect. If what you're saying is true, we're facing an invasion by an enemy we can't fight with conventional weapons. That's exactly what I'm saying, Hansol replied. And we don't have much time. The Devourers move fast once they start their assault. So-young was studying HFY's readings with growing alarm. The ship's stress levels are increasing. Whatever's happening out there, it's getting worse. Hansol felt HFY's fear like a cold weight in his chest. But underneath the fear was something else. Determination. Hope. The ship believed that together they might have a chance. Admiral, Hansol said, I need to find those other ships, and I need your help to do it. Admiral Lee nodded slowly. Mr. Kim, I think you just became the most important person in the galaxy. Outside, in the darkness between stars, something vast and hungry continued its ancient march toward the heart of civilized space. 2 months had passed since Admiral Lee first believed Hansol's warning. Now he stood on the bridge of the military ship Defender, watching the stars through the main view screen. But his attention was not on the stars. It was on the 7 other vessels flying beside them. The builder ships were unlike anything in the galaxy. Each one had its own personality, its own way of moving through space. HFY flew closest to the Defender, its biomechanical hull gleaming in the starlight. Hansol could feel his friend's excitement through their mental link. After being alone for so long, HFY was finally with others of its kind. Contact from the Centauri ship Dalbit, the communications officer announced. Put them through, Admiral Lee said. Hyojin's voice came over the speakers. She was a Centauri engineer who had bonded with one of the other builder ships 3 weeks ago. Hansol, we're getting the same readings you are. There's definitely something big out here. Hansol nodded even though she could not see him. Through HFY, he could sense what all the other ships were feeling. They were approaching the edge of Devourer territory, and the builder ships were getting more nervous with each passing hour. The search for the other ships had been difficult. Admiral Lee had given Hansol access to military databases and long-range scanners, but finding ships that had been hidden for thousands of years was not easy. Some had been discovered by archaeologists and locked away in museums. Others had been found by scrap dealers who did not understand what they had. The hardest part had been finding people who could bond with the ships. The builder vessels would not work for just anyone. They needed pilots who could form the same kind of mental connection that Han Sol had with HFY. Most people who tried either felt nothing at all, or were overwhelmed by the experience. But they had found 7 pilots in the end. Hyojin with Dalbit, Kyung-ho, a former pirate now bonded with the ship he called Baram, Yunsu, a young navigator whose ship was named Biol, and 4 others from different species across the galaxy. Learning to work together had been even harder. Each ship was different with its own way of thinking and fighting. The pilots had to learn not just to fly their ships but to think like them. Han Sol had become the coordinator, using HFY's ability to communicate with the other vessels to help the fleet work as one. Devourer ships detected. The sensor officer announced. Distance, 3 light years and closing. Through HFY, Han Sol felt a wave of fear from the other builder ships. But underneath the fear was something else. Anger. These ships had been created to fight the Devourers, and they were ready to do what they were made for. All builder ships, this is Han Sol, he said into his communicator. Remember what we practiced. Stay together, watch each other's backs, and trust your ships. The first Devourer vessel appeared on the main screen. It was huge, bigger than any warship Han Sol had ever seen. Its hull was black as empty space, and strange lights moved across its surface like lightning. Just looking at it made him feel sick. My God, Admiral Lee whispered. How many people are on that thing? None, Han Sol said quietly. The Devourers aren't people. They're something else, something hungry. More Devourer ships appeared surrounding the human fleet. There were dozens of them, all different sizes and shapes, but all radiating the same terrible hunger. The conventional warships that had come with them started firing, but their weapons did nothing. The energy beams just disappeared when they hit the Devourer hulls. Builder ships attack formation, Han Sol ordered. The 8 alien vessels moved forward in perfect coordination. HFY led the way, its biomechanical systems fully powered and ready for battle. As they approached the enemy, something amazing happened. Each builder ship began to glow with its own color of light. HFY shone with blue radiance, while Dalbit glowed silver and Baram pulsed with green energy. The light spread from the ships like wings, creating patterns in space that were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The Devourers reacted immediately. Their ships moved to intercept the builder vessels, and the first real battle began. Han Sol had never experienced anything like it. Through his connection with HFY, he could feel what the ship was feeling as it fought. The builder vessels did not just fire weapons at their enemies. They attacked with pure energy, beams of light that seemed to come from the ship's very souls. When HFY's energy struck a Devourer ship, the enemy vessel screamed. Not with sound, but with something deeper. It was the cry of something that had been feeding on life and light for so long that it had forgotten what it was like to feel pain. It's working, Kyung-ho shouted over the communication system. They can actually hurt these things. But the victory was short-lived. More Devourer ships kept appearing, emerging from the darkness between stars. For every enemy vessel the builder ships destroyed, 2 more took its place. There are too many of them, Yunsu said, her voice tight with fear. Han Sol felt the same fear through the ship network. The builder vessels were powerful, but they were only 8 ships against an armada. Through HFY, he sensed something from the deepest part of his friend's memory, a vision of the final battle of the builder civilization, when thousands of ships like these had fought against millions of Devourers, and lost. We need to retreat, Admiral Lee said. Fall back to the jump point. No, Han Sol said firmly. If we run now, they'll follow us. They'll keep coming until they've eaten everything. He closed his eyes and reached deeper into his connection with HFY. There's something else, something the builders built as a last resort. Through the ship network, he felt the other vessels responding to his search. Their combined memories were like a vast library, and together they found what they were looking for. The forge, Han Sol said, the builder's final sanctuary. Hidden in a pocket dimension, it contains something called the Void Gate, a weapon that can send the Devourers back where they came from. Where is it? Admiral Lee asked. Han Sol felt HFY's memory guiding him. Far from here, at the galaxy's core where space and time are twisted. But getting there will use up most of our ship's energy reserves. And if we don't? Han Sol looked at the swarm of Devourer ships on the screen. More were arriving every minute, blotting out the stars with their terrible hunger. Then everything we know dies, he said simply. Admiral Lee was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. All ships prepare for emergency jump. We're going to find this forge. As the human fleet prepared to flee, Han Solo felt something from the Devourer ships. Not hunger this time, but something like satisfaction. They had found the builder ships. Now they knew where the last weapons of their ancient enemies were hidden. The race to save the galaxy had begun. But Han Solo was starting to understand that even if they reached the forge, even if they found the Void Gate, someone would have to pay a terrible price to use it. The forge was nothing like Han Solo had expected. Hidden in a pocket dimension near the galaxy's core, it was not a building or a space station. It was an entire world made of the same biomechanical material as the builder ships. Living metal flowed like water across its surface, and vast crystalline structures grew from the ground like trees. But the most amazing thing was not what the forge looked like. It was what Han Solo could feel through his connection with HFY. The entire world was alive, thinking, waiting. It had been alone for thousands of years, but it had never stopped hoping that someone would come. The Void Gate is at the center, Han Solo said, standing on the forge's surface with the other pilots. Around them, their ships rested like sleeping animals, their hulls glowing softly in the strange light of the pocket dimension. Hyojin knelt down and placed her hand on the living metal ground. I can feel it through Dalbit. It's like a heartbeat, but so slow and sad. The ground beneath them pulsed with gentle light, responding to their presence. Pathways of energy began to appear, leading toward the center of the world. The forge was welcoming them, showing them the way. But even as they walked toward their destination, Han Solo could feel the Devourers getting closer. The enemy had followed them here, drawn by the energy of the forge itself. Soon they would break through into the pocket dimension, and then everything would be decided. How much time do we have? Admiral Lee asked. She had insisted on coming with them, even though there was nothing her conventional weapons could do here. Not long, Kyung-ho said. His connection with Baram gave him the best sense of the approaching danger. Maybe an hour before they break through. At the center of the forge, they found the Void Gate. It was a ring of pure energy suspended in the air, large enough for a ship to fly through. But it was dark and lifeless, waiting for someone to activate it. Han Solo approached the control system that surrounded the gate. Like everything else the builders had made, it was alive. He could feel its vast intelligence, its knowledge of how to banish the Devourers back to the empty spaces between galaxies, but he could also feel what it would cost. The pilot who activates the gate has to merge with the Forge's systems, he said quietly. They become part of the defense network, keeping the barriers strong forever. The other pilots were silent. They all understood what that meant. Whoever opened the Void Gate would never leave this place. They would become something more than human, but they would also lose their old life forever. I'll do it, Yunsu said. She was the youngest of them, barely 20 years old. No, Han Solo said firmly. This is my responsibility. I found HFY first. I brought us all together. That doesn't mean you have to sacrifice yourself, Hyojin argued, but through his connection with HFY, Han Solo felt something that made his decision easy. His friend was not afraid. The ship understood what had to be done, and it was ready to help him do it. A terrible sound echoed through the pocket dimension. The Devourers had arrived. Their ships began pouring through tiers in space, filling the area around the forge with their hungry darkness. They're here, Admiral Lee said, watching her scanners. Thousands of them. The builder ships rose from the surface of the forge, ready for the final battle. But Han Solo knew they could not win by fighting. There were too many enemies and more arriving every second. Keep them busy, he told the other pilots. Give me time to activate the gate. The battle that followed was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The builder ships fought with desperate courage, their energy weapons carving through the Devourer swarms. But for every enemy they destroyed, 10 more took its place. Han Solo placed his hands on the Void Gate's control system and felt the Forge's intelligence flowing into his mind. It showed him what he needed to do, how to merge his consciousness with the ancient systems. But it also showed him what he would become. He would be connected to every star in the galaxy, feeling the flow of life and energy across countless worlds. He would become the guardian of the barriers that kept the Devourers out, maintaining them with his will and his understanding of what needed to be protected. It was not death. It was transformation into something greater. But it was also goodbye to everything he had been. Through HFY, he felt the other ships fighting desperately above. Biol had been damaged, and Yunsu was struggling to keep her ship in the air. Dalbit was surrounded by enemies, and Hyojin was fighting 3 devourer ships at once. Now or never, Hansol whispered. He opened his mind completely to the Forge's systems, feeling his consciousness expand beyond anything he had ever imagined. Through the planet's vast network, he could sense every living thing in the galaxy. Billions of people on thousands of worlds, all depending on him to save them. The Void Gate blazed to life with pure white energy. But activating it was only the beginning. Hansol had to understand the barriers between dimensions, had to repair the damage the Devourers had done over millions of years of feeding. It was like trying to fix the most complex machine in the universe while it was running. But Hansol had spent his whole life fixing broken things. He understood how to see what was wrong and how to make it right. Through the Forge's systems, he reached out to the dimensional barriers and began to repair them. Where the Devourers had torn holes to enter the galaxy, he sealed the gaps. Where they had weakened the walls between realities, he made them strong again. The effect was immediate. The Devourer ships around the Forge began to scream as they were pulled back toward the Void Gate. They fought against the force dragging them, but they could not resist it. One by one, they were sucked through the gate and banished to the empty spaces beyond the galaxy. But the largest Devourer ship, a vessel the size of a moon, fought back. It anchored itself to the Forge's surface with tendrils of dark energy, refusing to be banished. Through his connection with the planet's systems, Hansol felt the creature's terrible hunger. It had been feeding for so long that it had become something beyond nature, a living black hole that consumed light and life and hope. You cannot stop the hunger, it spoke directly into his mind, its voice like the sound of dying stars. We are eternal. We are inevitable. Maybe, Hansol replied, pouring all his will into the barrier systems. But you're not welcome here. With a final surge of energy that he drew from every living thing on the Forge, Hansol ripped the creature free and sent it screaming through the Void Gate. The portal sealed behind it with a sound like thunder, and suddenly the pocket dimension was quiet. Above him, the builder ships hovered in the strange light of the Forge. Through HFY, he could feel the amazement and joy of the other pilots. They had won. The galaxy was safe, but Hansol was no longer entirely human. He could feel his consciousness spreading through the Forge's network, becoming part of something vast and eternal. He was still himself, but he was also more. He was the guardian of the barriers, the keeper of the peace between dimensions. Hansol? HFY's voice echoed in his mind, tinged with worry. I'm still here, old friend, he replied. Just different. Through the Forge's systems, he could sense the other ships and their pilots. He could feel Admiral Lee's amazement as she realized what had happened. He could sense the joy spreading across the galaxy as people realized the darkness was over. Years passed. The galaxy healed from the Devourer invasion. New worlds were settled. New technologies developed. The builder ships became the foundation of a new alliance between species, their biomechanical systems helping to advance galactic civilization. And on the Forge, Hansol watched over it all. He was no longer the poor mechanic who had bought a broken ship for half a credit. He had become something greater, a guardian of peace and protector of life. But in his heart, he was still the man who saw potential in broken things, who believed that everything deserved a chance to be fixed. Sometimes, late at night in the pocket dimension, he would remember Kepler Station and his cluttered repair shop. He would think about Taman and his fake smile, and how everyone had laughed at the mechanic who bought alien junk, half a credit for a ruined ship. It had seemed like such a small thing at the time, but sometimes the most valuable things are the ones everyone else thinks are worthless.